Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 28 based on novel. So let's start. Thunderous cheers rumbled without end on the mountain top. In fact, this scene even attracted the attention of the numerous surrounding mountain peaks. What a surprising conclusion! It is unexpected that Lin Dong was still able to unleash such frightening strength even when his Yuan power was sealed. Ying Xiaoxiao softly said. Her eyes contained thick surprise as she watched the green light gradually recede from the figure on the stage. I heard father mention that this fellow had learnt an extremely powerful body-tempering martial art. However, it was not so powerful the last time I saw him use it. It seems like he has deepened his mastery of that martial art. Ying Huan blinked her large eyes and said. It is not shameful for Qing Yi to lose to Lin Dong. If he continues to train for another 1 or 2 years in the Dao sect, he will likely become the strongest younger generation member. Ying Xiaoxiao said. Only Big Sis can be the strongest. Ying Huan held Ying Xiaoxiao's slender arm as she said with a smile. Stop it. You are extremely talented and even father has praises for you endlessly. If you put in more effort into training, you would have long surpassed me. Ying Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes at the young lady beside her and said. Others might not understand Ying Huan well, but Ying Xiaoxiao knew the former inside out. From a certain point of view, the former's talent was not inferior to her own. In addition to the musical gift that she was born with, her potential could only be described as terrifying. However, this young lady had a lively character and she usually skimped on her training. Nonetheless, Ying Huan's strength was still considered top-notch within Sky Hall. I did put in a lot of effort, Ying Huan muttered. Ying Xiaoxiao helplessly shook her head. She immediately turned around and looked at the grey-clothed man that was seated in the distance. Promptly, her originally bright eyes dimmed a little while the smile on her face receded. Big Sis, you will definitely win. An ice-cold delicate hand gently held Ying Xiaoxiao's hand. The latter turned her head, only to see a young lady's encouraging smile. The grey-robed Wang Yang was staring at the stage. His originally soulless eyes turned sharp and focused at this moment. His eyes were glued to Lin Dong. He could sense a faint trace of danger from that man. No wonder he was able to fight with Yao Ling until both were seriously injured. Wang Yang mumbled in a raspy voice, before lowering his eyes. After the previous battle between Lin Dong and Qing Yi, he did not dare to deny that Lin Dong was an outstanding individual. However, the latter still did not pose much of a threat towards him. The only person that he had to pay attention to today was Ying Xiaoxiao. However, based on his understanding of the latter, it was likely that she would not be able to stop him. Thunderous cheers continued to reverberate across the sky. At this moment, a deacon once again rushed over. His eyes were shocked as they swept across Lin Dong's body, who had withdrawn from his dragon materialization state. Subsequently, he took a look at Qing Yi, who had landed outside of the arena and no longer possessed the strength to fight. Only then did he finally announce, Lin Dong wins this match. His voice had just sounded out when the originally loud cheers suddenly grew even louder. This was especially the case for the Desolate Hall disciples. In fact, they were so excited that their faces had become a little red. Their Desolate Hall had finally defeated the Earth Hall after so many years. In contrast to the excitement of the Desolate Hall disciples, the Earth Hall disciples all felt a little helpless. However, there was nothing they could say. Qing Yi had even used the Earth Emperor scripture, but he was still unable to defeat Lin Dong. It was completely justified that he lost this match. Below the stage, Qing Yi's face was somewhat pale. His mouth twitched as he stared at Lin Dong. However, in the end, he did not say anything. He lowered his head in disappointment and allowed 2 Earth Hall disciples to help him up. Although he felt disappointed, he did not feel any dissatisfaction in his heart. This was because he was aware that even if they were to fight again, the outcome would likely be the same. The green glow on Lin Dong's body had completely withdrawn. When he saw Qing Yi retreating, he also gently exhaled. The sealing strength of his Earth Emperor scripture was indeed quite unique and mysterious, and even he felt a little lost previously. Fortunately, he had many other techniques. Moreover, with the increase in the amount of heaven dragon aura that his body could absorb, it allowed the might of his green heaven materialized dragon skill to increase. Furthermore, the appearance of the dragon wings was definitely of great help. With his current speed, it is likely that even a 9 yuan Nirvana stage expert would not be able to match him. Henceforth, even if he encountered an opponent he could not deal with, it would not be difficult for him to escape. Lin Dong's body moved. Under the incomparably fiery and worshipping gazes of the Desolate Hall disciples, Lin Dong returned to the Desolate Hall area. Junior brother Lin Dong, well done. Pang Tong's group instantly swarmed over. At this moment, even the usually steady Pang Tong had an excited expression on his face. He heavily patted Lin Dong's shoulder and laughed. Beside him, Jiang Hao and the rest also nodded. From the way they looked at Lin Dong, one could detect an admiration and respect that could not be concealed. After this match, Lin Dong had finally conquered the hearts of every senior direct disciple of the Desolate Hall. Lin Dong smiled and chatted with everyone. After which, his eyes turned to look at the distant lonely grey-robed figure. He clearly understood that the most eye-catching match in this whole competition was going to be the one between Ying Xiaoxiao and Wang Yang. One was the top-ranked younger generation member in the Dao sect, while the other was a senior disciple who had already established a fearsome reputation for himself in the eastern Xian region. Both of their reputations in the Dao sect was something that even the current Lin Dong could not surpass due to the limited amount of time he had. Wang Yang's sudden return this time around had also caused the Placid Hall competition to become a little confusing. The two of them were basically the strongest two amongst the Dao sect younger generation members. It was likely that everyone present wanted to find out just who was the stronger one. It is likely that the match between those two will be the most significant one. Pang Tong also saw the direction of Lin Dong's gaze. He immediately sighed and spoke with a somewhat complicated expression. Lin Dong gently nodded his head. Given Ying Xiaoxiao's character, there was no way she would easily surrender the commanding rights of the disciples in the great sect competition to Wang Yang. Wang Yang, who was similarly obstinate, would also try his best to fight for it. If those two, who were considered extremely powerful, were to end up meeting each other, the battle between them would likely be even more fearsome than his previous battle with Qing Yi. Moreover, this matter was related to the great sect competition. It was likely that even the upper echelons of the Dao sect would pay great attention to it. If one was to describe it, the battle between those two would be the match that would attract the attention of the entire sect. The crazed atmosphere that had arisen due to the intense battle between Lin Dong and Qing Yi lasted for quite some time, before it gradually died down. Subsequently, another couple of matches took place. The other senior direct disciples from the four halls were also quite powerful. However, their battles were undoubtedly inferior when compared to the battle between Lin Dong and Qing Yi. Hence, although the noise on the mountaintop did not cease, it did not reach the thunderous level from before. Moreover, even though many interesting fights continuously took place, most of the disciples' attention involuntarily turned towards Wang Yang and Ying Xiaoxiao. Time slowly flowed under this somewhat unusual atmosphere. The matches in the arena also ended one after another. In the end, even the currently battling disciples helplessly shrugged their shoulders. They exchanged looks with one another before directly withdrawing. Looks like they were clearly aware of what everyone wanted to see. Similarly, they also shared the same desire. The news from this place seemed to spread extremely quickly. In the end, the disciples on the surrounding mountaintop also arrived. In the end, they surrounded the mountain, making it so packed until even water would be unable to seep through. A strange atmosphere enveloped the mountain. However, Wang Yang continued to sit with his eyes shut. His skinny figure appeared increasingly lonely after being outlined by the black large sword on his back. Ying Xiaoxiao remained calm and collected. However, her hands slowly tightened under her sleeves. A deacon finally rushed out in front of many gazes. He landed on a stage and looked at the two most attention-grabbing figures on the mountaintop with a complicated look in his eyes. Immediately, a low cry resounded on the mountain top. The next match will be between Ying Xiaoxiao of the Sky Hall and Wang Yang of the Sky Hall. After the deacon shouted, no celebratory cheers sounded out on the mountain top. Instead, everyone's attention was locked onto those two figures. This would perhaps be the greatest battle amongst the Tao sect disciples. Under the attention of the crowd, Wang Yang's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. His eyes were still indifferent and numb like before, and they lacked emotion. He stood up and moved his body, before directly appearing on the stage. After which, his soulless eyes looked straight at Ying Xiaoxiao. Ying Xiaoxiao's chest gently rose before falling as she inhaled a deep breath of icy cold air. Under the numerous watching eyes of the crowd, she finally rushed out and gently landed on the stage. Her eyes looked towards the man carrying a black broadsword, as a clear voice resounded across the entire area. "Senior brother Wang Yang, please advise me." Clear sounds rang across the skies above the mountain peak, seemingly possessing some sort of magical power, as they caused the entire area to fall into complete silence. All that remained were the surrounding gazes that were unblinkingly locked onto the two people on the stage. Under the convergence of innumerable gazes, Wang Yang faintly raised his head and looked at the slim and slender lady in front of him. A ripple of emotion appeared within his originally indifferent eyes, while a complicated expression emerged on his originally emotionless face. "You've always been so calm and cool-headed since you were young. To think that you haven't changed at all after all these years," Wang Yang said with his hoarse voice. "You, on the other hand, have changed quite a bit, senior brother Wang Yang," Ying Xiaoxiao replied softly, gazing at that especially weather-beaten face, which in reality could be considered young. Wang Yang smiled faintly and turned silent for a while before saying, "Given how smart you are, you should already have guessed my reason for returning. You know who I am. If and when we trade blows later, I'll show no mercy." Ying Xiaoxiao's chest heaved up and down as she took a deep breath of the cold and refreshing air. Looking straight at Wang Yang with her clear eyes, she said, "Senior brother Wang Yang should also know me well." Although she did not elaborate, she knew that Wang Yang understood the meaning behind her words. A trace of darkness flashed past those indifferent-looking eyes, before he shook his head and said, "Someday, I will repay the Tao sect with my life." Ying Xiaoxiao sighed and declined to speak any further. The current Wang Yang was already extremely prejudiced, and words would be unable to get to him. In that case, the only way left was to knock sense into him through the match. "Senior brother Wang Yang, make your move." Feeling the bright gaze from Ying Xiaoxiao, Wang Yang slowly clenched his fists. Soon after, the darkness in his eyes diminished bit by bit as his usual indifference made its appearance once again. Outside the stage, Ying Huan's jade-like hand involuntarily clenched tightly. Her lips were tightly pursed together as she stared at the two people facing each other on the stage. Soon after, a somewhat sad expression appeared on her lips. The scene before her was something that no one wished to see. On the seat atop the tall platform, Ying Xuan's eyes were a deep and still abyss as he stared at the stage. He faintly closed his eyes, waving his hand with a sigh. Upon seeing this, only then did the deacon on the stage nod his head, and with a sudden wave of his hand, exclaimed, "Let the match begin." Bang! Two boundless and surging yuan powers seemingly erupted at the same time from within both of their bodies. The robustness of the yuan power made the expressions on the faces of even those great direct disciples of the Four Halls change. 9 yuan Nirvana stage, the peak of the Nirvana stage. This level was indeed deep and immeasurable. Ying Xiaoxiao's jade-like hand closed into a grip and a meter-long green peak sword wrapped in a green glow appeared within it in a flash. A chilling intent covered those clear and beautiful eyes before her body turned into a blur of light and shot forward. The blur of light was akin to a slender bolt of lightning and appeared in front of Wang Yang in a flash. The sharp green peak sword drew a swift and fierce arc as it pierced towards Wang Yang's front. Just as Ying Xiaoxiao's attack was about to hit its target, Wang Yang suddenly moved. At an instant, a chillingly cruel aura erupted from within his body. Extending two of his fingers without warning, he reached out and clamped the green peak sword piercing towards him directly between his bare fingers. The swift and fierce sword inches away from Wang Yang's forehead suddenly froze at this moment. Taking a step forward, his fingers traced along the length of the green peak sword and, like a poisonous snake, pierced towards Ying Xiaoxiao's hand that was holding the sword. Ying Xiaoxiao's eyes contracted, as she sensed the frightening energy contained within Wang Yang's fingers. Immediately withdrawing her hands, the surface of the long sword erupted with resplendent green light. Shortly after, a clear and cold voice rang out, "Heavenly Star's Three Flowers Sword." The green glow whizzed, and instantly changed into 3 sword flowers. Within those sword flowers were innumerable minute sword glows that were released strand by strand, causing an extremely destructive force to radiate outwards. Lin Dong's eyes hardened when the 3 sword flowers appeared. He could sense the fissomeness of this sword flower. If an HUR Nirvana stage expert were to be struck squarely by it, it would certainly lead to heavy injuries. Looks like it was not a false rumor that Ying Xiaoxiao was called the #1 person within the younger generation of the Dao sect. Facing such an attack by Ying Xiaoxiao, Wang Yang was not the slightest bit careless. Retreating 2 steps back, his hands closed into a grip and the black broadsword from his back shot forwards and landed in his hands. Black Demon Slash. Grasping the black broadsword in his hand, Wang Yang's face remained indifferent. Without any gaudy sword techniques, boundless yuan power crazily surged from him, sending down a furious slash. A gigantic black sword glow burst out from the sharp end of Wang Yang's sword like a waterfall. Splitting the air, it slammed heavily onto the 3 magnificent sword flowers. Bang! A low and deep blast sounded out in mid-air as the black and green glows exploded. Exceptionally swift and fierce sword glows appeared to lose control and poured out madly in torrents, slashing directly at the entire stage, leaving it full of scars and pockmarks. A fragment of a sword glow passed swiftly over Wang Yang's face and left a bloody scratch on it. Without blinking, he stretched his tongue out and licked the bloodstain. This action made him look rather savage. Bang! Wang Yang's figure dashed forward once again, as the broadsword in his hand created fierce and violent arcs in the air, enveloping Ying Xiaoxiao as it headed towards her vitals. His moves were entirely different from hers. The fierceness and violence within them were filled with viciousness. Obviously, these few years of living life on the edge had forged his savage combat style. Facing Wang Yang's ferocious attacks, Ying Xiaoxiao did not yield in the slightest bit. Vigorous yuan power of the 9 yuan Nirvana stage completely gushed forth from within her. A sword glow that blotted out the skies came forth from the meter-long green peak sword and smashed heavily into the broadsword. The 2 figures crisscrossed on the platform like specters as their swords made contact with each other. Sparks sputtered and scattered about as the resulting clash of sword chi cut the entire stage into a complete disorderly mess. Numerous gazes converged on the 2 spectral forms. The swift and fierce sword chi from there caused the scalps on the heads of many grow numb. They knew that if they were to trade places with them, they would perhaps have been chopped into many pieces by the sword chi. What a fierce and violent sword chi! At the area where the desolate hall disciples were, Pang Tong and the rest muttered as they looked in shock at the stage where the 2 were trading blows. As expected of great senior sister Xiao Xiao. Her strength is indeed formidable, even senior brother Wang Yang can't deal with her. Junior brother Lin Dong, looking at this match, who do you think has a greater chance of victory? Fang Yun asked with a smile after exclaiming in admiration. Lin Dong wrinkled his eyebrows before faintly shaking his head. He did not make a verdict. However, a faint trace of concern flashed past in the depths of his eyes. From the current situation on the stage, they were indeed evenly matched. Ying Xiaoxiao's strength was not a single bit inferior to Wang Yang's, and her timing of attack and defense was quite perfect. However, when compared with Wang Yang, she was lacking a portion of viciousness. Clearly, Wang Yang was one who had experienced life-or-death battles. When he went on the offensive, it was an all-out effort with no thought of withdrawal. A person like him fought with all his life and would use the slightest of costs to exchange for the greatest benefits. Sometimes, in a match between experts, all it takes is for one's momentum to be slightly surpassed for one to fall into a complete disadvantage, and sometimes even have one's flaws exposed and dealt a fatal blow. Therefore, while the situation on the stage may look alright for her, Lin Dong knew that Wang Yang was merely finding a specific opportunity. Once a person like him was able to grasp an opportunity, he would end the match on his very next move. Hopefully great senior sister Xiao Xiao will realize it. Lin Dong sighed secretly. He was not familiar with Wang Yang, therefore he naturally hoped for Ying Xiaoxiao to clinch victory in this match. As he was in thought, his gaze suddenly looked towards Sky Hall area. A slender and elegant young lady sporting a ponytail stood there. Her pretty face was filled with nervousness and some deeply concealed unease, as if she too had come to a certain realization. The young lady's senses were quite keen and acute. She turned her head around when Lin Dong looked towards her, a pair of big black eyes interlocking with his. As their gazes intertwined, the young lady's face did not turn red this time. Instead, a sad color flashed within those bright and beautiful eyes, like the dark and gloomy clouds in the blue sky. It made one feel somewhat sorry for her. Lin Dong gave a soft sigh and turned his head. His gaze was cast once again towards the arena while his eyes faintly flickered. Another extremely clear metallic sound spread across the arena. Sharp sword glows swept forth as the two figures hurriedly took over a dozen steps back. The hard ground where their feet landed was also turned to dust due to the sword chi that seeped out. Their attacks were unusually sharp and ferocious. It seemed like her reputation as the strongest Dao sect younger generation member, and his second-placed ranking on the sect's wanted list were indeed not from nothing. Ying Xiaoxiao steadied her body. Her simple and noble face was filled with a rather grim expression. After the previous exchange, she could already tell that Wang Yang was not inferior to her. The battle today might not be easy for her, but in order to prevent Wang Yang from obtaining the commanding authority of the Dao sect disciples during the great sect competition, she must stop him no matter what. Light flickered in her clear eyes, and a determined expression suddenly flashed across her face. Her body moved as she leapt into the air, while her delicate hands suddenly formed numerous dazzling seals at lightning speed. Following the change in Ying Xiaoxiao's hand seals, everyone clearly sensed the surrounding Yuan power begin to boil. While the surrounding Yuan power boiled, a bright light scattered from Ying Xiaoxiao's body. An extremely dazzling sight. This is, Great Senior Sister Xiaoxiao is about to use the Sky Emperor scripture. Numerous disciples watched the unusual activity in the sky. Soon after, a shocked expression surged on their faces. They did not expect Ying Xiaoxiao to use a trump card like the Sky Emperor scripture so soon. She doesn't want to drag things out her. Lin Dong had similarly sensed the terrifying ripples surging around Ying Xiaoxiao, and his lips curled slightly. It seemed that Ying Xiaoxiao also understood that Wang Yang was extremely experienced. If this dragged on for a long time, the other party would definitely find an opening. In that case, it was better to act decisively. With the Sky Emperor scripture, it might be possible to change the situation. Vast and majestic fluctuations continuously swept in all directions like huge waves with Ying Xiaoxiao at the center. The entire world appeared to have turned much dimmer at this moment. Senior brother Wang Yang, I am aware that you possess strong hatred in your heart. However, there is hardly anything you can do now. Some grudges are not so easy to forget. However, there will be a time to collect the debt in the future. Ying Xiaoxiao hovered in the sky. Her eyes were locked onto Wang Yang below, as a soft voice slowly transmitted downwards. Should we continue to swallow our pride then? A mocking expression appeared on Wang Yang's indifferent face. After which, he turned to glance at a particular spot on the tall stage. After which, he shook his head and solemnly said, I am no longer able to endure. Make your move. However, if you continue to be so soft, I will no longer show any mercy. During the great sect competition, those bastards from the Yuan Gate will not show any mercy to you. Wang Yang raised his head as a chilling glint gathered within his eyes. His ice-cold voice caused many Dao sect disciples to feel a chill all over their bodies. Helplessness flashed across Ying Xiaoxiao's eyes when she saw how resolute Wang Yang was. After which, she gently exhaled as she suppressed the churning emotions in her heart, and her changing hand seals suddenly stilled. Bang bang! Wave after wave of monstrous Yuan power gathered wildly behind Ying Xiaoxiao. In the next moment, the enormous waves churned and transformed into 1,000 feet large sword of light behind her. When the light sword appeared, the surrounding space appeared to become distorted. A majority of the Dao sect disciples turned pale at this moment. They could feel the destructive ripple emitted by the light sword. If this sword struck them, it was likely that not even their bones would be left. That light sword seemed to possess a terrifying strength that could slice apart the skies. The Sky Emperor scripture is powerful indeed. Lin Dong's eyes were surprised when he saw the enormous sword in the sky. The sharp ripple that was emitted from its surface caused him to feel extremely fearful. The four great mysterious scriptures of the Tao sect truly lived up to their reputations. Sky Emperor Scripture. Great Sky Cloud Scraping Sword. Ying Xiaoxiao extended her hand in front of countless pairs of eyes. After which, she grabbed at the enormous light sword. In the next moment, a clear and cold cry suddenly emerged from her mouth. At the same time, her body appeared above the huge sword. After which, she suddenly swung her hand. As Ying Xiaoxiao's jade-like hand fell, the tip of the enormous light sword in the sky suddenly rotated. After which, it rushed directly towards Wang Yang in an explosive manner. As the light sword rushed downwards, a glaring scar was left behind in the empty sky. It was as if even space itself was being forcefully ripped apart by this sword. The ground below collapsed at this moment. The frightening large sword had yet to land, but an incomparably sharp sword force was already sweeping downwards, hacking the enormous stage into two. Frightening wind pressure caused Wang Yang's clothes to be tightly pressed against his skin. However, the latter continued to stand still with his head held high while the enormous sword rapidly magnified in his eyes. Sky Emperor Scripture Her. Wang Yang's indifferent face appeared to move a little. Immediately, a low mumble was emitted from his mouth. Have you forgotten that I am also a disciple of the Sky Hall? Bang! After Wang Yang's voice sounded, wild and violent Yuan power suddenly erupted from within his body. The surrounding Yuan power boiled immediately at this moment. Finally, they transformed into an enormous light sword that was not inferior to Ying Xiaoxiao's. Between the two, Ying Xiaoxiao's light sword inclined towards dark green while a black glow undulated on Wang Yang's one, making it look dark and menacing. It is actually the Sky Emperor Scripture too. Countless pairs of eyes looked at the enormous sword that had formed behind Wang Yang. Soon after, a series of exclamations continuously rang out on the mountaintop. Lin Dong focused as he observed this scene. Wang Yang was also a disciple of the Sky Hall. Hence, it was not incredulous that he also possessed the Sky Emperor Scripture. Great Sky Cloud Scraping Sword. The surprised gazes that filled the entire place did not cause Wang Yang's expression to change the slightest. His sleeve suddenly waved as his enormous black light sword directly rushed out. At the same time, he moved his body and appeared on the large sword. After which, man and sword merged together as they viciously charged towards the light sword descending from the sky at lightning speed. Two bright lights flashed past the sky like two meteorites. After which, they collided with a loud bang under the countless watching gazes. Bang! The entire place trembled when the collision occurred as frighteningly sharp sword glows swept apart. The dozen surrounding large stages were all shattered into dust thanks to the sword glows. Some surrounding Tao sect disciples also hurriedly retreated because they were afraid of being dragged into the destruction. Black and green light frantically eroded each other in the sky. It was an earth-shattering sight and it felt as though Armageddon was about to arrive. A sharp sword glow whistled past Ying Xiaoxiao's ear, cutting a thread of her black hair. However, her clear eyes were still glued onto Wang Yang. Immediately, she clenched her silver teeth. A 3-feet green sword appeared in a flash. After which, it carried an unusually sharp aura as it pierced towards Wang Yang's throat. Wang Yang gazed at Ying Xiaoxiao's formidable attack. However, he surprisingly did not dodge as his hand reached out instead. It turned out that he wanted to use his bare hand to block Ying Xiaoxiao's sword attack, which could easily hack an 8-yuan Nirvana stage expert into two. Ying Xiaoxiao's expression changed when she saw this scene. She watched Wang Yang's scar-ridden face as she bit her lips. The moment the sword glow was about to penetrate Wang Yang's palm, a bitter smile appeared on Ying Xiaoxiao's face, and the sword suddenly slowed. Creak! The moment Ying Xiaoxiao's sword slowed, Wang Yang's palm had already grabbed it. The sharp sword glow instantly caused Wang Yang's hand to be covered with fresh blood. However, he completely ignored it. All he did was stare at the former. Finally, He shook his head slightly and spoke with a hoarse voice. I have already told you not to hold back. The current me is no longer the same senior brother Wang Yang from before. Xiao Xiao, do not blame me. Wang Yang's eyes slowly darkened. His other hand rushed out like lightning. With an extremely violent strength, he pressed it against Ying Xiaoxiao's shoulder. Bang! The wild and fierce force was just like an erupting volcano. Ying Xiaoxiao's lovely figure trembled as a muffled sound was emitted from her throat. After which, her body fell downwards and smashed onto the ground in a somewhat miserable manner. The low and deep sound directly shocked Ying Huanhuan and caused her small face to turn pale. Just as Ying Xiaoxiao's body landed, a figure followed closely behind like a phantom. Before she could resist, a black broadsword that was suffused with a cold and sharp aura had already arrived in front of her. You lose. Wang Yang lowered his head. His eyes were indifferent as he watched Ying Xiaoxiao, whose pretty face was a little pale as he slowly said. The entire place was completely silent. Ying Huanhuan, who was watching this scene, staggered a little. Her pretty face was also as pale as sheet. The scenario that had caused her the most unease had finally appeared. Can the result be announced? Wang Yang raised his head and looked towards the deacon as he said in an indifferent manner. The deacon was startled for a moment when he heard this. Immediately, he looked at Ying Xuanzi, who was seated on a tall platform. The expression of the latter remained as still as water. However, only Chen Zhen and the others seated beside him could see that some tiny cracks had appeared on the armrest of the chair, where his hand was placed at. Ying Xuanzi finally nodded slowly under the watching deacon's eyes. Wang Yang wins this match. Upon seeing this, the deacon sighed in his heart. Finally, he announced in a loud voice. The voice spread, but the entire mountaintop was completely silent. However, Wang Yang ignored it. He kept his broadsword before he turned around and proceeded to leave. An indifferent voice sounded out when he turned. I will return when the great sect competition begins. Ying Xiaoxiao watched Wang Yang's back. At this moment, the eyes of the great senior sister of the Sky Hall, who had never showed any signs of weakness in front of others, suddenly reddened. Big sis. Ying Huanhuan quickly landed beside Ying Xiaoxiao. She gazed at her red eyes and fell into a panicked state. It looked as if tears were about to roll down her huge eyes as well. The atmosphere of the entire mountain fell into a strange silence. Everyone watched Wang Yang departing with a black broadsword on his back, complicated expressions on their faces. Asterisk how troublesome. Lin Dong sighed when he saw the depressing atmosphere that pervaded the mountaintop. He kneaded his forehead, appearing to hesitate for a moment. Finally, he slowly walked forward. The moment Lin Dong walked forward, countless pairs of eyes gathered onto him. Even Ying Xiaoxiao and Ying Huanhuan turned to look at him with lost expressions. Senior brother Wang Yang, the whole competition has not ended. It is perhaps a little too early to leave. The skinny young man spread his hands in a somewhat helpless manner under the watch of many puzzled gazes. After which, his voice echoed across the sky. This video will end here.